If you're arrested for driving under the influence, the investigation of your DUI doesn't end there. The police officer will usually ask you to perform a urine, breath, or blood test to determine your BAC, blood alcohol content. You can refuse to take the test, but this will likely result in a license suspension. Arizona has strict DUI laws and harsh penalties for people who drive under the influence in the state. Jail time, high fines, and a permanent mark on your record are some of the consequences you might face. Many people mistakenly think that you can't receive a DUI conviction without performing a blood or breathalyzer test, but you can still get a conviction based on other evidence, even if you don't comply with the test. Arizona has some of the harshest DUI penalties in the entire country, including mandatory jail time. If you refuse to take a blood, urine, or breath test, you can still receive a DUI based on other factors. Operating a motor vehicle in the state means that it's implied that you will consent to such a test. Refusing to take a test can result in a license suspension. Working with an attorney is essential if you've been accused of driving under the influence. According to state law, it's illegal to drive if you're impaired by any drug, intoxicating liquor, vapor-releasing substance, or combination of any of these. Even if you don't necessarily feel impaired, you can still receive a conviction. This applies if you have a blood alcohol level BAC of 0.08% or more from alcohol consumed within 2 hours of being in physical control of or driving a vehicle. Some states separate driving under the influence and driving while intoxicated, but Arizona law considers them the same crime. Whether you're driving under the influence of alcohol or another substance, or you have a BAC of 0.08% or more within 2 hours of driving, you may face severe consequences. Law enforcement officers may choose to administer a few different tests to determine your level of impairment. According to state law, when you operate a motor vehicle, it's implied that you consent to such a test. A breathalyzer test uses the air in your lungs to determine your BAC, while a blood test looks at your bloodstream, and a urine test determines how much alcohol is in your stomach. An officer who pulls someone over under the suspicion of drunk driving will determine sobriety by performing 2 tests, a field sobriety test and a breathalyzer test. A field sobriety test is a group of 3 tests used to assess balance, coordination, and the ability of a driver to divide his or her attention to more than one task during the field sobriety test. The tests used in a field sobriety test are balance, 1-leg stand, coordination, walk and turn, divide attention, horizontal gaze, nystagmus. Unlike the field sobriety test, which requires movement, a breathalyzer test uses a mechanical device to assess the blood alcohol level of a driver. The breathalyzer test is the most important tool when determining whether or not someone is driving under the influence, and the reading it gives will determine how harshly a driver will be charged. Do you have to take a breathalyzer test in Arizona? In Arizona, even though you have the right to refuse a breathalyzer test, you should not do so. If a driver refuses a breathalyzer test, they are not preventing themselves from being arrested for a DUI, as an officer use other means to ultimately decide if they believe a driver is under the influence and arrest them. Instead, refusing a breathalyzer test only delays the process, and it will result in the following. First offense refusal to take the breathalyzer will result in a 1-year suspension of a driver's license. Second offense refusal to take the breathalyzer within 7 years of a previous one will result in a 2-year suspension of a driver's license. Third offense refusal to take the breathalyzer within 7 years of a previous one will also result in a 2-year suspension of a driver's license. An officer will perform a breathalyzer test to determine if a driver is over the legal limit of 0.08% blood alcohol level, BAC. If the BAC is above 0.08%, the driver will be charged according to Arizona's 3 DUI categories. Standard DUI is a BAC of 0.08, 0.0014, but for a commercial driver, it is a BAC greater than 0.04. Extreme DUI is a BAC of 0.509. Super extreme DUI is a BAC of 0.20 or greater. Breathalyzer tests are not reliably accurate, and false positives occur often. If you have been charged with a DUI, there is a chance that the breathalyzer had an incorrect reading, and an experienced DUI attorney can use this as a strong defense for your case. What causes a false positive breathalyzer test? False positive breathalyzer test results are all too common, but many police officers and prosecutors do not recognize this as it may allow for a case to be dismissed. There are many reasons why false positives occur. Here are the most common causes: improper equipment calibration, medical conditions such as acid reflux, medications, mouthwash contamination diet. For instance, individuals on a low-carb keto diet will have increased levels of acetone in their breath, which the device can register as alcohol timing of test. If the test occurs less than 15 minutes after a drink was consumed, the device will record the BAC as being much higher than it actually is. Vomit. If you vomit before taking a breathalyzer test, there will be an increased amount of alcohol residue. One of the biggest contributors to false positive tests is acid in our bodies. Certain medications or medical conditions such as acid reflux disease cause the acid levels in the esophagus to increase. And when a breathalyzer test occurs, the buildup of acid causes a phenomenon called mouth alcohol. The mouth alcohol effect will cause a breathalyzer test results to be much higher than they actually are. Medical conditions such as GERD, acid reflux, heartburn, or any medication that would cause an increase in acid in the body may create a false positive on a breathalyzer test. If you have been arrested for a DUI and have a medical condition or take medicine that increases acid levels in the body, contact us to schedule your free case review. A DUI charge is extremely serious according to Arizona law and can impact your future financially, personally, and professionally. It's imperative that you speak with a DUI lawyer as soon as possible if you've been accused of driving under the influence. They will help you decide whether to plead guilty, request a jury trial, or try to plea bargain to get lesser penalties. Our criminal defense team at JacksonWhite has a proven record of improving the future of our clients and taking control of these difficult situations. Call the JacksonWhite criminal law team at 480-745-1639 to discuss your case today.